Imagine wanting to pay back your friend for a dinner you had together last night, but your friend sends you a DM asking you to use a specific service. You look it up on DuckDuckGo because Google sucks, and find it has 1.2 stars and over 18,000 reviews. 85% of those reviews rated bad, 1 star, and plenty of them would give 0 if they could. Angry customers claim to be losing hundreds or even thousands of dollars on this service, locking up their funds and providing horrible support. You'd never want to use such a service. In fact, you'd probably think your friend got hacked and a scammer is trying to use their account to steal your money. But apparently this is a company with over a $300 billion market cap. Wait, rank 28? What the fuck?
So this is an ATM. What we're going to do is transform the traditional banking industry.
Yeah, it's PayPal, founded by Elon Musk, the Belle Delphine of tech bros. The fact that millions of people use PayPal on a daily basis is a crime of the century. The company probably has the worst reputation on the planet, and the reasons for it are obvious to anyone that distrusts centralized financial services. PayPal isn't the only financial company susceptible to the failures of centralization, but it's a perfect case study for why you shouldn't trust any single authority when it comes to your money. Here's the problem. Money is inherently neutral. It doesn't care whose hands trade it, and that's good, even if the money funds nefarious purposes. The reason for this is that people need to have trust in the value of the legal tender. If they have to think twice about each transaction, whether it's gonna get locked up or get your funds frozen, the public would lose trust in the currency. If crimes are being committed, the law should go after the people and not taint the funds. But this is where financial services enter the market and ruin your day. Companies that handle your money have a responsibility to their shareholders. They need to pay out dividends and increase share prices, otherwise investors might bail. Serving customers neutrally is risky because at least some of them might use their service in ways that produce really bad PR. Whether it's legal or not, bad PR can come from anything that might be picked up by the public or the media. Financial services wouldn't make money in such a volatile environment without a mechanism to rule out those bad seeds. And that mechanism is the terms of service. PayPal's terms of service redefines what money means. Its narrow acceptable use policy makes money function as a permissioned tender. You cannot use your funds however you want, since PayPal has a broad definition for which payments require pre-approval and which ones are not allowed at all. At the first glance, this policy might sound reasonable. Obviously, no company would want to serve criminals. But there are a few clever legal phrases that do a lot of heavy lifting for PayPal. Transactions involving narcotics or steroids are not permitted, even if they are legal. And the same goes for any product that presents a risk to consumer safety, which can arguably be any product at any point in space and time. What's certain is that your transactions must not involve cigarettes, firearms, ammunition, firearm accessories, or certain knives and weapons. That's a broad category of items that may be perfectly legal in your jurisdiction, but PayPal doesn't allow them. In your country, money can be protected by freedom of expression, but at PayPal that's not the case, because you cannot pay for items that are considered obscene, whatever PayPal decides that is. You cannot support workers in the business of providing sexual content or services, and of course, you shall not pay for anything that can be considered hateful, intolerant, or discriminatory. And let's not forget that what is legal or legal doesn't necessarily reflect what's moral or ethical. PayPal only enables the safest route, the status quo. It would never allow fringes to challenge the mainstream and change the society for the better. In other words, if PayPal existed in the 1960s, they would absolutely side it with segregation, because that's what they are doing to sex workers, drug users, and copyright reformists. Now we are not talking money anymore. This is social media platforms' territory. But with PayPal, their policy is far more destructive, because getting deplatformed from social media can be detrimental, but it's not an immediate existential threat. But pulling the rug on your funds, that can completely ruin your business or life. The practical application of PayPal's acceptable use policy is far worse than you could imagine from just reading it. In 2010, PayPal froze the account of WikiLeaks after the organization exposed war crimes conducted by the US military. PayPal wasn't the only one. Pretty much everybody pulled the plug on WikiLeaks at the time. Amazon, Visa, MasterCards, DNS resolvers, but the majority of contributions to WikiLeaks had been drawn via PayPal, so this move was significant. WikiLeaks' only option was to ask for Bitcoin donations. And WikiLeaks isn't the only publisher PayPal unplugged. In 2019, PayPal halted payments to over 100,000 performers and content creators on the most family-friendly hub on the internet, essentially threatening livelihoods of one of the most traditional workers in our economy. PayPal's reasoning was that the hub made certain payments without asking for PayPal's permission. The hub eventually began providing cryptocurrency payment options, offering to select Bitcoin, Litecoin, or other virtual currencies. I hope you're starting to see a pattern here. PayPal is notorious for using automated filters to flag certain transactions based on keywords. This resulted in Palestinian charities that were not on the US government sanction list to have their donations rejected or funds frozen on PayPal and Venmo, PayPal's offspring. Such a dragnet flagging mechanism also caused headaches to users' transactions with keywords Persian or Iran. You would think that it makes sense because Iran is currently sanctioned by the US government. The problem is that this isn't the US government blocking these transactions, it's PayPal liberally interpreting the US foreign policy, applying it to people that would never be targeted by the sanctions simply because of keywords that triggered the algorithm. You might argue, hey, they are trying to be compliant, it's not them, it's the US government. And I wouldn't argue with you. In 2015, PayPal was fined £5.1 million for violating sanctions imposed by the US Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control. OFAC is an office that imposes and enforces economic sanctions based on US foreign policy and economic goals. Its broad scope of engagement naturally invites politically motivated incentives that PayPal is willing to go above and beyond to satisfy. PayPal and Venmo automatically screen payments against the OFAC blacklist and flag anything that comes remotely close to potential violation. It functions as a government's extension of financial censorship. But this is the point. A financial service with a central authority to give people permission to use it should not exist. Money works best in a peer-to-peer mechanism. No intermediaries, no third parties, just you and your recipients. That's how cash and coin payments have worked for thousands of years, and there is no reason digital payments should work any differently. Introducing central authority or third parties to money transfers only imposes liability on the authorizing body. Because of that liability, financial censorship is an inevitability. Innocent people and perfectly legal transactions are a massive collateral damage of such a system. It also excludes a large portion of the population that is not deemed creditworthy because they're living at or below a poverty line. The internet is flooded with ridiculous examples of PayPal's financial censorship. A merchant based in Seattle selling Tardigrade ornaments was censored just because a company named Tardigrade Limited that operates from Cyprus is on the OFAC blacklist. What makes this even more ridiculous is that PayPal wouldn't revoke their decisions, but merchants would move to Shopify where Tardigrades were not censored, even though Shopify's payment structure is equally centralized. People have their funds frozen and transactions rejected without being given any explanation. In some cases, customers are directed to an appeal process that doesn't lead anywhere. Most of these cases wouldn't lead to PayPal correcting their mistakes, but to users changing their behavior or switching to a different payment processor. PayPal also follows the social media trend of pulling the plug on speech that is uncomfortable for their shareholder value. This isn't the case just for some high-profile right-wing or pro-Trump figures and organizations. Antifa groups and left-wing factions have also been caught in the PayPal's anti-tolerant dragnet. Some want to politicize this censorship by claiming it's an anti-conservative bias, but that's a reductive statement. PayPal is censoring anything that might threaten their bottom line and is far from just conservatives. Financial censorship will continue being a rising problem, and PayPal will be one of its greatest enablers now that it's fully expanding into China. Just like the Chinese government has been using American corporations like Apple, Nike, or Disney to export their censorship into the world, PayPal, now owning a 100% stake in a Chinese payment company, will become the next major exporter of the CCP propaganda. No foreign corporation is allowed to operate in China without strings attached, as they are often required to submit control of their Chinese operation to government-backed businesses. In the near future, expect to see your transactions being rejected for violations like acknowledging Taiwan, supporting Hong Kong, or speaking against the oppression of Uyghurs.
We're not just talking about banking regulations here. I mean, China has, a pretty atrocious track record when it comes to human rights, surveillance. Don't you worry that at a certain point you won't be able to speak out on your values without risking the business that you've built in China?
We need to rise above our own self-interests.
What good is it to be a productive, law-abiding citizen earning steady income if payment processors can prevent you from using money in legal ways? If you need anyone's permission to participate in it, it's not money, which is why so many people and large institutions are moving to decentralized cryptocurrencies. PayPal is one of those large institutions that have jumped on the bandwagon, but not all institutional adoption is equal. PayPal's acceptable use policy also expands to cryptocurrency payments, which completely defeats the purpose of a permissionless currency. Why would you transfer your digital coins via PayPal if they could freeze or eject them at any point? Many in the cryptosphere welcome PayPal's uninvited visit, but PayPal brings nothing positive to cryptocurrencies. Maybe they might expose more people to Bitcoin or Ethereum, and maybe that will increase their price. But all of these people that will be first introduced to cryptocurrency via PayPal will have a completely distorted view of what a permissionless decentralized payment system is supposed to be. What we need to do is continue building and expanding the parallel world based on decentralization. Continue asking businesses to accept Bitcoin and Monero payments, especially Monero, since this is the only blockchain that maintains your financial privacy on top of giving you permissionless currency. Encourage content creators, service providers, brick-and-mortar stores, or even your hairdresser to start accepting Monero and other decentralized coins. This is the only way we can fight off financial censorship in the long run. My YouTube channel is still vulnerable to centralization. If payment processors pull the plug on me, it might be over. However, I'm accepting Monero, Bitcoin, and Ethereum donations, and the best way for you to support my channel is to do it anonymously with Monero, which is also the cheapest method with incredibly low transaction fees and no platform takes a cut. Other than that, your engagement and sharing is also much appreciated. Thank you for your support and thanks for watching.